What's up YouTube? This is Matt and today we're going to be talking about the RX 480 and whether or not it has lived up to the hype and more importantly if you should spend your hard-earned dollars on it. So let's get to it. So first, to understand whether it's lived up to the hype or not, we need to talk about what hype has been surrounding it. So it all started at Computex 2016 when AMD announced the RX 480, touting it as being a VR-ready card for $199. Now, one thing they said was that it was over 5 teraflops of performance. Now, this was kind of disconcerting to me because if it was anything really considerably over the 5 teraflops mark, then don't you think they would have noted it? It would be like a car company saying, oh, our car has over 400 horsepower. Now, you wouldn't expect that car to have, say, 457 horsepower because then they'd probably say, well, it has over 450 horsepower. Now, this led me to believe that the card wasn't going to be much over the 5 teraflops performance mark, even though a lot of people were speculating that it was going to be somewhere between an R9 390, which has 5.1 teraflops, and an R9 390X, which has closer to 6 teraflops. Now, also at Computex, they showed it off in a game called Ashes of Singularity, which is very well optimized for DirectX 12 and very well optimized for AMD, and they showed that it was actually beating a single GTX 1080 with 2 RX 480s in Crossfire. Now, NVIDIA actually showed off that the GTX 1080 could beat 2 GTX 980s in SLI, so logically that would put the RX 480 in line with the GTX 980, but as we've seen later, that's not necessarily the case. Now, because of this plus other leaked benchmarks showing Firestrike scores that were close to the GTX 980, people were making articles and videos saying, yes, the RX 480 is going to be a GTX 980 killer for only $200, which would have been amazing seeing that the GTX 980 at launch was about $500. And then today came, June 29th, when everyone showed off the benchmarks for the RX 480, and we actually saw that the RX 480 is trading blows with the R9 390 and the GTX 970, which definitely doesn't completely live up to the hype that it's going to be competing with the GTX 980. And something to keep in mind is that now on release date, the only model you can get is a reference card that has 8 gigabytes of VRAM. And once you pay tax and shipping and all of that, you're going to be paying around $250 to $260 for the reference card, which actually isn't too far off from what you can get a GTX 970 or R9 390 on promo nowadays. So really right now, I don't think it's lived up to the hype as much as I would have liked to have seen it, but really that's more of a problem of speculations and people building up expectations before they've seen benchmarks. Something else to keep in mind is from what we've seen so far, this card isn't a really great overclocker. For example, Ehrlich from Tech of Tomorrow attempted to overclock his and he wasn't even able to get a 2% overclock without it crashing his system. Even with a 1.5% overclock, which is really marginal at best, he was seeing the temperatures on the GPU rise by about 10 degrees Celsius, which is a very substantial jump for such a small increase in performance. So my recommendation would be that you wait to see what the board partners do like XFX and Sapphire to see what they do in terms of cooling solutions and power solutions, so you might be able to get a better overclock and be able to run it quieter and cooler. So can I recommend you go out and get an RX 480 today? The 8GB model. If you don't have something like an R9 390 or GTX 970, then yeah, it's still a pretty good deal, but if you have one of those cards, it's really not going to be worth the upgrade in my opinion. So overall, I still think the RX 480, especially the 4GB card, if you can get a board partner custom cooling card for that $199 mark, is still going to be a really good deal, seeing that it's around the same performance as an R9 390 or GTX 970 that up to a few weeks ago cost around $300 to $330. So yeah guys, overall I really don't think that the RX 480 lived up to the hype, but I still think that it's a good deal and still can recommend the card. So as always, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if this is the first video you're seeing of mine, I'd recommend checking out some more and consider subscribing. It's free and it would mean a lot. So yeah, as always, this is Matt from Tech by Matt, signing out.